Cheers, everybody, and welcome to your favorite late night Friday night hashcast. It is Variables, and we are your hosts, Figuroli, Pedro, and Superior Buds, live every Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, Twitch, and X. When we subscribe to Premium, or if we have subscribed to Premium, maybe you'll just have to check yourself. And of course, anywhere after the show, including Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? Episode 43. A little ask us anything, kind of ask me anything, but ask us anything because there's three of us. So make sure you throw those questions in chat. We can see all of those streams back here in the back end on YouTube, on Twitch, on X. It doesn't matter where you're making that comment. Throw in your questions for us all night long and we'll be answering them. We can kind of highlight them on the back end and make sure we get to them. But gentlemen, I'll ask again. How are we doing today?
Good, man.
Yo, if I do my math right, does this mean we have like 9 weeks before we hit the year mark?
Correct. And I think if we want to talk about actually a year of shows, it's coming up sooner than that because we have missed a few weeks. But in terms of,
I was thinking that too.
Worth of shows, we're not far out, man. A couple months.
Get ourselves 52.
Well, that'll be fun. We'll have to try to figure out something to do. Try to do something fun.
Maybe a giveaway or something, yeah. Maybe
Right?
we'll dress up with some
I think
costumes or something, or maybe we'll just do some 1 gram dabs. Look at them diamonds.
I can find a banana costume or something somewhere.
Well, if you're going to be a banana, I'm going to be a gorilla, and you can chase me around on screen.
Nice.
I'll wear Benji's stoplight costume.
I got
How's that related?
Got a little play project at Eden this week. I guess it's not going to come through very well.
You said a la what?
Huh? Where?
You said a la a play? What did you say?
I don't remember the words that came out of my mouth.
Something project you
a
got.
Project up at Eden. Just a play.
I didn't know if I was just. Oh, okay. Man, I thought.
There we go.
Oh, beautiful, dude.
Oh, I tell you what, man. It's getting to the point now where you start seeing some Eden on the shelf out here in Colorado. My goodness, man. It's we're definitely on the map now. I don't know if I had anything to do with that or not, but man, I tell you what.
I put my money on yes.
I tell you what, you run into.
I mean, I might put all my money on yes, Pedro.
So we got 3 jars to play with tonight. I'm sure I'm going to play pretty big because that's just kind of what happens. So
well, what are the flavors?
We got some Trop B, some papaya, and some cherry paloma. I like saying papaya because it's just fun.
Yum. I've got some do-si-do right now that I'm gonna get into here. I waited. I didn't pre-dab before the show.
Oh, I did.
I'm still on baby dabs. Last week I threw my back out again by coughing, so that's a little bit too large of a dab.
My dumbass did 1.5 grams last night before I went to bed. I got the video.
Why?
I record because I have this big old. I think maybe I showed it last week. I don't know. I have this great big fucking banger that looks like it wants to eat 1 gram.
We talked about it on the Let's Be Buds podcast.
Was that the podcast?
Takeover on Wednesday.
Maybe that's what made me do it.
Fresh.
maybe that's what made it was fresh in my mind. No, I wanted to. Like I said, that literally that blender screams throw something more than 0.5 gram in me. And so yeah, it honestly was just about a little bit too much. My D2T, my dab to temp ratio was I don't know, could have been
how many pulls?
Could have been a little. I think I did 4 or 5. I was gonna say I think what you saw was it, but I haven't posted it yet. So I think it was 4 or 5 pulls, but they were fucking monsters, dude.
Right.
Just absolute monsters.
That has a lot to do with it, right? Because I could sit here and say I've taken 1.5 gram dab, but if I'm doing the OG Pedro style, the very elitist style of taking only 2 hits off the top of the dab, well, then I'm probably not doing a whole 1.5 gram dab. But there's a couple things you mentioned. The dab to temp ratio, which we did talk about on Wednesday, and I'd love you to talk about that more here on this show. And then also, we're talking airflow and, of course, the other variables that there are. But I think probably the most important is maybe D2T. I got that right this time.
Yeah, and then at that point in time, accessories actually start becoming more than just a cool visual factor. They start really becoming more of a heat retention unit, an oil spreading unit, and a surface area unit. Variable, in the dabbing thing. So yeah, man, there can be a lot of different variables that you really got to think of. It was kind of funny you mentioned that. Just before I was taking that dab, I was like, man, I haven't used this blender for a while, right? And I have this solid pillar, and I got 1.5 grams, and I'm like trying to do all the math in my brain. I'm like, man, if I go in and I just do this and it just fucking black, if it just turns black, I just smoke it, but just Chaz the Banger, I'm gonna feel embarrassed as shit, because you only really got one shot. You're doing 1.5 grams.
Right.
Fucking.
What temp are you talking?
I think we talked about this the other night. Variables depending on your unit, but with the Dabrite that I'm using, I got the Dabrite Pro, and I believe my sensor is clean. I guess I got to stick a glob mop in there and clean it again. But yeah, I think I was probably 660, 680, somewhere in that range when I dropped it in with the solid pillar. At that point in time, I love using the hollow pillars, but man, at that point in time, when you're talking that big of a dab, you really need some heat retention.
Yeah, for real.
That's what I was going to say. Like that's got to hold heat really good.
Yes.
My shitty bangers, that have started to cloud, you can really tell how fast they cool off versus a fresh, nice crystal clear banger.
Mm-hmm.
Learn a lot by watching that number.
Yeah, and having these discussions. Cheers, Ty Six and Lily Bud. I see you guys in chat. Make sure you go check out their show. Let's be buds.
I do not see many people in chat. So if you have said something and I missed it and you wanted me to see it, don't feel bad to say it again, and I'll try to make sure to remember. But I do see Pink and DLO on my Twitch channel with Don, with Don't Fuck Around, and Silverbug and LaFonda and yeah, I see Ty over here from the show the other night. That was a good show. That was a fun show, man.
You know what? Okay, we're gonna do this live. Pedro, Bit by Silverbug. Do you recognize that name? I heard you shout it out. Or are you just shouting it out?
I was just shouting it out. Okay. Honestly, just shouting it out.
Okay, because I had an interaction with this person recently, and it was a really positive interaction. And I think they found some medicine to really help them. But I didn't know the reason I asked, and just because you shouted them out, was I've had people come up to my booth before, Pedro, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but people that have come up to me and literally in the moment made the connection that somehow Fergoli is associated with Pedro because they know who Pedro is, and then all of a sudden it just connects. They're like, wait, you and Pedro, aren't you don't you know Pedro? And I'm like, yeah, we do a podcast together. We've done a couple podcasts together, and they're like, oh man, dude, I'm a huge rosin fan, blah, 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 and they go down that road, right? But it's funny how even half a country apart, while we might be connected online, we are still very much half a country apart. And the people that enjoy, the fans, if you will, they cross over not because of this podcast or even because of GrowTube, you know what I mean? It just might be because of quality, the nature of seeking that out. And so, yeah, I was curious to know if he was one of them, but it's besides the point, I guess.
I hate that you pointed that out, but it is funny. It's been a lot of times too when people have said the same thing. Oh, I met you here, and I'm just like, I feel like a jerk that I don't remember everybody, but damn, man, I try.
One of the most standout ones to me, or just surprising, I guess, was I want to say it was the June 2019 Cannabis Cup. Maybe it's 2018, but I think it was the 2019 Cup in Clio, Michigan. It was definitely at Clio, so at the Speedway. And I'm sitting there working the booth. We got, few of my patients, helping out and serving up free dabs and stuff. And all of a sudden I just hear this deep, very distinct, unique voice. And he starts laughing and talking to someone, and I just immediately turned around, and I knew before I turned around who it was, and it was Loki Grow. He
Oh
had made the
shit!
trip out, and it was like he just has that distinct voice. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like if you
I've seen
listen to
Loki
him
in a
on his
long
YouTube.
time.
That was the first show that you and I met too.
Oh, was it? So was it 2018 or 19? Do you remember?
I've got
Or is it
photos.
before that?
I'd have to look.
Okay, because I feel like it was before 19.
Man, you start talking about those early times, and it's like I got to start looking back because I'm like, has it really fucking been that long?
Mm-hmm.
Loki
So-
was posting again recently. Got the goods going again.
Get this, it is. I'm not sure if it's to the day. It might. I don't remember if it was like the 9th or the 19th, but 5 years ago, I got those puppies, and it's been 5 years since they've had an actual, as we remember them, High Times Cannabis Cup. So I will gladly sit here and say I am still the reigning champion of the sativa and hybrid concentrate cannabis cups from High Times. And until the day they allow all of us to compete again, I will continue to claim that fucking title.
That was 2019?
Correct. 5 years ago in August. I mean, 5 years ago this week,
August,
next week, something like
why.
that.
Okay, here it is. Hold on one sec.
Screen share. Oh shit! There you go, dude. Fuck yeah! Can you send that to me?
That's cool shit.
Seriously
like-
though, can you
Yep,
send that
we
to
were
me?
there with rep from Arden Lighting that
Shoot.
time.
I can't believe you pulled that up that quickly. I've never seen this photo, and I wish I had video of that moment.
I tried.
Yeah, don't be sharing. Don't be
Yep.
oversharing there.
Not sure what
All
else
that-
is on there. Hold on.
all those patents and personal tech you got back there. You don't want to give everyone your secrets.
Let's see. I just wanted to make sure I had. Oh yeah, this was. Oh, wrong share.
I know there's too many options.
Yeah,
Oh wow, look at that. It's a lot of seats.
yeah. The wife and I both spun their little wheel, and we both won the max prize on it, and shut
Fuck
down
yeah.
the wheel.
That's awesome.
It was fun. That was her first grow was actually those autos. So here I've got a bunch of different ones. I took come on.
Oh, zoom in on my wife right there for me for a second.
It won't go any closer.
I don't know.
There it goes. That's a good photo.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Of course, R.I.P. Rory.
Let's see. How come there it goes. Yeah, I've got
Pedro keeps typing.
There's
in the
fucking
alt chat.
Pedro's weekly fucking. I'm gonna send it to everybody's message.
Was that twice this week?
Damn it! Did I do it twice already? Yes.
That was
Why does
twice.
that do that? All right.
You got all
Hi.
selected.
Damn it.
I
hate
think
that's
actually I remember how I ended that speech. I said, "Support your local florists," and of course, by that I mean your local caregivers. And that was the last time that we had an event like that.
right.
You know,
It was a fun event.
it really was. It was wild.
Yeah, it was. That was VIP was like triple oversold.
I think everything was triple.
Yeah.
There was estimated over 50,000 people there, which
Yeah, we
was
do the
crazy.
we do all the merchandise for them. And so we were given the VIP and got to go and all this stuff. And it just was, even from what we saw, was a shit show. You know, it was just so many people.
So you're the reason they're $50 t-shirts or what? No.
Hey, that's not what we charge them.
Right. Oh, I know it's not what you charge them.
Yep. I mean, we
They were
sell
making
them
pretty
for
pennies.
18 and make a killing. So
Yeah.
we do have our first question though.
I'll take this. When in the last wash or two, what do you do about excess foam? And is the foamy hash worth collecting? Guys, this is a you question.
It was one of my first questions for Pedro when I first washed. And I was like, why do I have so much foam?
Well, then answer it for me while I'm over here dying.
We didn't even notice.
I just wash
my
it out.
toes are sweating, remember?
Yeah, I just wash it out. Collect everything, wash it out. The foam goes away when you rinse enough.
Yeah, I forget the word anymore after this last bout of bullshit that I've been having. If you know, you know, I guess. What is it? It's not desiccants. It's the foamy shit. Usually, if you spray something on your plants, or any kind of foreign substances that you might have, can cause it to foam up. But we have it too. I think everybody has it. Don't worry about it. Like you said, just collect it, wash it out. Is it worth anything? Yeah, man. As far as I'm concerned, all hash is worth something.
Yep.
We wash down.
There's hash in there. It'll rinse out and
yeah. We wash down to the 5th and 6th washes sometimes. What's valuable about it is to scope it then, and grade it. You know, if it's not worth smoking, then I mean, you can still press it into rosin and not smoke it. I think some people forget that they're still processing for medicine, right? It's not just about this heady fucking necklace around my neck. You know what I'm saying? We're still collecting for medicine. So you can collect the heady shit. Of course, we collect the heady shit, the good shit, the best shit that we can. But there's still worth to stuff that's not the heady shit, you know? And there we go. Surfactants. Thank you very much. I couldn't think of the goddamn word. But yeah, there's still worth to hash as far as I'm concerned, all the way down. You'll start finding that towards the 4th, 5th, 6th washes, depending on a lot of different variables, that you'll start finding a lot more stalks in your hash. And there's still oil in the stalks, and you can still get some rosin out of it, but it'll generally be darker. It'll generally be a lot less terpy. It'll generally be a lot more throaty, a lot harsher. So generally what I'll do with that is I will what's going on?
I'm just giving credit where credit is due.
Okay.
There's a couple people said it before that one, so
I feel like I did something wrong. I felt like
no, I'm just spamming your surfactant.
So yeah, like I said, you can still press it into rosin, and eat it. You guys have all seen me do the rosin edibles. Decarb it, add some coconut oil, mix it up, homogenize it, and eat that shit.
Can I ask?
No.
Okay.
It's not what this show is called.
You asking questions.
So I love edibles, and this is what's left of it. Probably still a 250 milligram left worth of edible. Yeah, I don't know, probably about a 500 milligram cookie, maybe 350 to 500, somewhere around that. It's a pretty heavy cookie. I know what it takes to decarb my oil. What kind of decarb process are we looking at when it comes to edible grade rosin?
Honestly, I'm an old school decarber. I'm going to do 250 until I see the bubbles where I want them, and then I'm pulling it.
Are you doing it in the oven?
Yeah.
In a dish, like a Pyrex dish, in a basin jar?
I'll generally do it in a jar. I'll usually fill it about halfway full. You definitely got to start worrying about pressure.
Yeah.
Do
you foil or do you cap it? Or
I do cap it. I generally, if I remember correctly, I believe the last time I put the cap on, but I opened it. I allowed it, air to
be able to-
release.
Yeah.
I mean, there are value in consuming the terpenes, but you also don't want something to blow up in your fucking oven.
Yeah, I mean, really, I don't know how much you're really going for terpenes when it comes to decarbed oil, but definitely value in them if you can maintain them. You know what I mean? I usually just cover it with foil, but you know, I guess it kind of serves the same purpose, honestly. Are you stirring it or agitating or anything, or just washing it to wait for the bubbles to stop?
Generally, when I do my stirring is after I add the coconut oil, and then I'll stir it and homogenize it. And that's generally enough.
So you've decarbed it at that point, though.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
How long? You said at what? 250?
Yeah, 250 until it stops boiling. And man, I haven't done a decarb process for quite some time because I was kind of stocked up.
Yeah, but it was like muscle memory for you. You've made so many fucking rosin capsules. I mean, it's what is it? 250, like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35. I mean,
variables. How much are you going through?
you said half a jar, right? So half. I don't know how big the jar is. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. You can have some pretty goddamn big jars,
right?
You know? But yeah, I mean, within an hour, generally, you can get it done. You know, and then you just got a jar of oil that you can then fill at your leisure. You know, and I mean, and you can throw in the ratio of the coconut oil, which is what I use, to rosin is what really becomes the biggest factor. The biggest factor, big time.
Why is that?
It becomes your strength. You know, you were talking about a 500 milligram cookie there. I'll eat an edible. I love eating an edible, but I'm a sexy motherfucker and I try to stay
Yes,
sexy,
you are.
right? So I try not to eat as many cookies and brownies and whatever.
Pedro's amount that he wants, that's like a lot of cookies.
Exactly. When you were talking, I'm like, well, I'm eating that whole
more
cookie,
than the butter can hold.
I mean, really. So you know, I'm taking between 100 to 500 milligrams at a time, generally. So that
Growly missed out on our discussion about the numbers that we did, all the math.
Oh, dude, we fucked up so many times. That was funny.
Did you guys do math live last
We did.
Week? We did. It was dumb.
Open and like it took forever.
It's like
and then
rule number 3 of podcasting.
Yeah, no, we definitely should not have.
Notepad like 2 days ago.
We were trying to educate, you know, a little bit about the whole thing. And man, dude, the variables and just everything it got so goddamn confusing, and I was so embarrassed about how
That's why
bad.
I had to type it. I couldn't.
Yeah, get out the spreadsheet. Holy shit,
dude! It was a little nuts. We definitely should have skipped that.
Well, what was the problem you guys were trying to solve, and did you solve that problem?
We were trying to figure out the rosin to coconut oil. So are we going to do it again? Let's try not to do it again. We were trying to do the rosin to coconut oil. So if we're doing 50-50, you know,
you don't got to use numbers. Just tell me what you're trying to solve.
Yep. That's what we're trying to solve.
We're trying to find,
you're trying to find the ratio. So if you're doing a 1-to-1 ratio, then you got to find the strength of the rosin that you're putting in. And then how much rosin you're using. I think that was essentially the amount of variables. But for some reason we dropped the ball pretty bad. It was definitely pretty entertaining, but
you know what, my again, this is just what works for me, and like we talked about on the Let's Be Buds podcast on Wednesday, like there's so many variables. It comes down to your philosophy, and whether that's growing, processing, or just your view on hash, or maybe it's how you make your edibles. There's a lot of variables, and there's a different philosophy on how do you attack those variables.
As long as you get the end result you're looking for, that's all.
Exactly. And so repeatable results, like Superior Buds always says.
Took the words out of my mouth.
I've spent a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but maybe that too, a lot of money testing, the oil pre-decarb, post-decarb, in an edible, at certain different weights and capacities and all these things, right? I like, and here's my secret number, 65%. So if I have 1 gram of oil, I'm going to consider that once decarbed 60 or 650 milligrams of THC. And I think that's, you're muted.
Yeah, I think we were doing 70 last week just for round ball fucking numbers.
Okay.
You know?
And
Made the
again,
math easier.
right. Again, this is, well, maybe because now we're talking really like 2/3, so it's then maybe that's more of an estimate number than 70.
Everything we were doing was a fucking estimate number. Because I mean, well, I mean, let's be real. If we're not doing it in a commercial, you know, medical market, then we're all just, which is, I realize
really about the formula though, more than the numbers. Right. It was about if you want 65, you could plug it into what we talked about.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that was where I kind of came to the conclusion a little bit earlier when I was in my grow room. Sometimes I don't, I get embarrassed and I don't like to show the grow room. You know, I fuck up. I burn my plants with my lights. I mean, fucking last time I had thrips like crazy, you know. And I guess you start really kind of holding yourself to too highest standards, you know, is number one. And then number two, you got to realize, like you said, everybody does, you know. And I think what holds a lot of us back as social media producers, I guess, or whatever you want to call us, content creators. We start letting the comments get to us, right? So if we're not doing something the way everybody else does, or the way that they're telling us to, we really kind of let it get to us. And what we really kind of need to remember, and what I kind of came to the conclusion of, is to show how people can do it at home. You know, because not everybody has thousands of dollars to get a really nice dehumidifier, a really nice humidifier. So maybe they bought that one off of Amazon, that nice one off Amazon. You know, they bought those 2 nice fans. Well, they're still off Amazon because that's what everybody else can buy, you know. So you try to remember, getting back to where we were with the medicine, is just kind of letting people know the process of how they can do it themselves at home. You know, so when we start talking about coconut oil, you know, maybe we're not melting it and sucking it up into a syringe and making sure that we're exact. You know, maybe we're just using a fucking spoon and kind of eyeballing the 1-to-1, you know. So I think what we got to remember is, like you said, content creators, is that we need to speak to our crowd, you know. And I'm not a fucking scientist. I'm not somebody. I'm not that guy, you know. So when it comes down to the big numbers and to doing everything on that level, that's just not me. So I like to just try to stay with showing people how I do it and how you can do it yourself at home on more of a, I don't want to say budget level, but you know.
Well, and that's, as more states come online, you know, more new growers. There's more new growers than there are the old growers teaching. So you gotta remember who we're talking to a lot of times. And
yeah, I agree. But I don't agree. Also, chat, you want to fight? Let's go. Hey, quick shout out to 248 Glass. They're in chat right now. They made this lovely giant glass straw, which I'm holding on to and not using because I've already gone through a couple of his straws, just breaking them, slamming them in the dishwasher and breaking them in half or whatever it might be, you know, dropping them from too tall of height. But 248 Glass, you're gonna be there tomorrow. I don't expect you to do this last minute, but I do need some shorter glasses. I don't have very many tall drinking glasses, devices. Sure. Yeah. So I need some shorter. This has got to be like it's 12 to 14. I need like an 8 to 9. I need a couple of them.
Ooh, starting to get me.
They're too big.
They're too
big. And I like them, you know, thin. Well, no, I'm just kidding. I actually like the wide mouth ones, but look at
damn, that. Bro. You're turning me on over here.
Do you like the ridges? Straw. It really is with the like, little alligator eyes on top.
You got variables over there.
Shout out to Frank Glass. Go check them out.
I don't want to miss some questions. Our show has asked us anything, so I want to go back. I saw some questions. There's one here. I'm not going to answer it, but I'm going to shout it out. We're talking about fats and lipids in the stalks and whatnot. And this it's kind of coincidental that you asked me this, because it's been something that's been going through my head. As a matter of fact, it was literally going through my head in the shower this morning, as to how we as processors keep fats and lipids out of the final product, what the fats and lipids do. And just like you said, is there more fats and lipids in the stalks and or heads? And I honestly don't have a hell of a lot of super good answers on that. And I'd like to get some processors on, maybe on both sides of the fence, as solventless and hydrocarbon processors, to answer that question a little more sufficiently. I'm maybe a little embarrassed that I don't have the answer, but I don't, and I want to just make sure that I shouted out your question and that I wasn't ignoring it. And then I remember there was something else down here a little bit further. Like I said, I just didn't want to miss any questions here.
I'm back. My internet just took a shit.
Someone else here.
Hold on. Don't move on.
Oh shit! Sorry.
What was that last question? Stocks, fats,
stocks, fats, and lipids, and yep.
Yeah, I have some comments to make about that, because that is a huge goal of mine, is to reduce as many fats and lipids. And the way I go about that is a method in which solventless just cannot do, and that's by utilizing dry ice, to the extent that while I'm removing the cannabinoids and terpenes from the material to collect them in my material, or my collection basin, if you will, I'm operating at a temperature of about -40 to -70 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, water is going to freeze at that temperature, but solvents don't. They remain liquid, and it will dissolve those terpenes and the trichomes and the cannabinoids that we're trying to get. And with pressure and movement, I can force those into my collection chamber and collect them. And what's left behind is a lot of fats and lipids. And what I've noticed with like a trim run that might have more like fan leaves in it, maybe a couple more stems or things like that, I am going to get more fats and lipids. And so I think that there is probably a significant amount more fats and lipids in the stems, but also in the fan leaves themselves, because again, we're trying to target the trichomes, right? And so if we're including things that don't necessarily have a high volume or volume to mass ratio of, or maybe weight to mass ratio of trichomes, right, of those cannabinoids and terpenes that we're seeking, all we're doing is washing like a very low grade material. So it's not to say that you can't get cannabinoids and terpenes and the medicine off of or out of a fan leaf or a stem, because we know that those things can contain trichomes, but at the same time, it's going to be such a minuscule amount. It's like, kind of where's the break-even point, right? And I think
diminishing returns for sure.
Yeah, and for something like a solventless wash type process, that's not that's why all that stuff gets thrown at like a CO2 or mass scale hydrocarbon system, because they're just trying to get everything, like every little last bit out of it. They're not going for quality.
Yeah, I guess if I was going to give the answer to the information that I have, that I know, it's we can't wash the waxes and lipids, fats and lipids out of the product, but what we can do is minimize, like you said, the stalks, and keep it to the trichomes as much as possible, and then press, separate them, in the separation process, and then press what we want to accordingly. And I believe that there's also a pressure to heat ratio that we're walking, that I would like to get a lot more information from a lot of other processors as well.
Well, on top of that, if you can remove just the trichomes, again, you're going to have a lot, same idea with the ratio, right? You're going to have a lot higher content, or amount in terms of volume of cannabinoids and trichomes inside of those trichomes versus cannabinoids and terpenes inside of those trichomes versus the fats and lipids that might be in the SOX systems, etc. There's still going to be fats and lipids, that we know that it's like the waxy layer, that kind of maintains the shape, if you will, of the trichome itself. Like, that's not necessarily what we want, but we're getting down to such minuscule levels that this is where the testing and the science comes in, Pedro. And I think that having those discussions with other professional solventless processors is the only way you're going to figure this out without actually doing the math or doing the testing or doing the science. And
here and again, this is where I go back to, this is where we as content creators or processors or whatever, we get a little embarrassed, because we don't want to be, we're supposed to know it all, right? I'm supposed to be the fucking expert, right? My rosin's the best, right? I'm the I mean, come on, but
listen, you might not have a fucking PhD in, I don't know, fucking name it. There's a lot of degrees you could get that would help this industry, but
right.
Listen, you probably have the equivalent of a PhD in what the fuck you're doing. You know what I mean? Because what is it? The whole 10,000 hours to become an expert or whatever,
I've got
I mean, there's no way. There's no way you don't.
We had talked about this a while back there, but looking under the, mass spec or the microscopes and electron microscopes, you can really see the difference between the head and the amount of oil that the stock would have, and how you were saying, Barola, you're going to have a lot more fats and lipids and waxes, and it's the outer casing. It's a ladder of cells versus a singular.
It's like concentrate the good stuff so you have less of the bad stuff. That's kind of like what you guys are doing. Whereas we're trying to just do everything we can to leave the bad stuff behind over here.
I was going to say, let's be honest, when you start blasting stuff with hydrocarbons, you're getting everything through. You just, kind of getting whereas we're filtering through and then extracting what we've then filtered. You're extracting while you're filtering.
Yes, it's an inline process is what I would call it. Whereas you guys is a multi-step process. Yeah. Or at least the way I operate, because not everyone does it the same as me.
I would agree. I would agree. But let's get on. Let's get on to some more questions here. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I want to make sure that we answer everybody's questions, because that is a show. So when we were talking about the decarbing, someone was asking, so can you make your oil, then heat it to decarb it, or not a good idea? And my answer is that's exactly what I do. I'll make my rosin. Sometimes I'll make after, like you said, the 10,000 hours, I'll make my decision as to whether or not I want to smoke it while I'm pressing it. But otherwise, I'll take a rip off it quick, and I'll be like, nope, that one's good. Nope, that one's not
jars of
that one ain't the one. That one ain't the one. So that's exactly what I'll do. I'll make my decision, and that's where I said, man, wash that 5th, 6th, 7th wash, especially if you like edibles,
Right. Yeah, squeeze every
we talked about that on
wrong button.
We talked about that on the show, Let's Be Buds, where how you asked, how do we judge how many we do?
That was the wrong button.
Yep.
But that's
I've hovered it so many times. I'll be honest, I've almost clicked.
It needs to be on a different location.
For real. All right, sorry. So on Let's Be Buds, we were saying
how many washes we do, and at home
I need another
first wash, and what I get out of that first wash determines how heavy I'm going to beat up the second and third wash. And am I going to try to get everything I want out of the second wash, or is the first wash amazing and I'm like, oh yeah, the second wash I'm going to take my time with?
Yeah.
It just really depends. If you look at the first wash and you're like, oh, it's good, but I'm not going to spend 3 hours on this freaking plant. Let me just get to other material that's better. That's why I have a mix of shit to wash all the time. But
there's, that's the repeatability, but through different variables, right? Throw in a couple of variables, but try to get the repeatable results.
Yeah, when I first started, I asked Pedro all the time, how many bags do I use? How long am I supposed to? I'd washed before, but it was haphazard when we were doing it back in 2000. Like we didn't have freeze dryers. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. You know, once I got all the equipment and I talked to Pedro, it's my first 10 times washing. It was like all bags. I need to learn what's dumping out of these plants and actually understand what I'm doing. For me, that's the only way to learn. You know, you tell me all day long I should only use 4 bags, and I'm down to 4 bags now for most of my washing. But still, it's nice to have the experience of why am I doing that.
Mm-hmm. I have to agree with this comment. Spartan Grown says, I find BHO filters out more than rosin by filtering out all the fats and lipids, which I don't know if it's all of it, but it's definitely more. And that results in a cleaner banger and a hit than a rosin hit 9 out of 10 times. And you have to be talking a certain level or quality of BHO, I think, because
and same with rosin.
And same with rosin too.
Yep.
But if we're talking both high quality, like something we're going to get out of Spartan or anyone on this panel, then yeah, it's probably 9 times out of 10 going to take you dunking that thing in ISO, or going to take you 3 or 4 Q-tips to actually clean it. If you're hitting that rosin, because in my opinion, the fats and lipids, there's just extra fats and lipids. Those things are going to burn onto your banger and it's going to be a bitch to clean off. Whereas if you're rocking a super clean, highly cold filtered, we'll call it, I guess, BHO live resin, there's a good chance like that Q-tip's going to come out looking like you got clean ears, if you know what I'm saying. Like it's just there's barely anything on it.
I think there's part of that is how hard you're pressing too. Like,
well, that's what Pedro's saying. There's like
because it's you're pushing extra shit through. You can force the bad stuff through, but I found myself when I was early on pressing too hard, and then I went the far opposite and I pressed too light and I was leaving too much behind. You know, that was the fine balance of figuring out how do you get a clean banger while still getting as much rosin out of the bag as you can.
Right.
And then also having a finish process of what do you do with the pucks when you're done with them instead of throwing them away, because you know you're leaving stuff behind, so there was a lot more to it.
And that's a good point. It's like you can kind of have your own cutoffs or your own like process that limits the low end of the quality, and that might reduce the overall volume or your returns, but that doesn't mean you can't go back and get that return, especially when it comes to rosin bags.
And I think that's a big difference between the way home processor and a commercial processor.
For sure.
Very different in what you have to do.
They're looking for returns, and it kind of works the same in BHO Superior. Like if I'm operating at negative 70 degrees, do you want to see what happens when I operate at 70 degrees Fahrenheit?
Right.
Or 120 degrees Fahrenheit? You want to see what returns I'm getting then? 3.5%, let's triple that. You know what I mean? Like
gosh.
But it's gonna be trash. It's gonna be, filter it, winterize it so you can use it in edibles at that point. Like, ugh.
Man. Yeah, it's an interesting balance figuring out costing myself. It's hard to cost yourself yield, even especially all the work that goes into getting it at this point.
For sure.
The last thing, I've made some stuff that'll chaz my banger pretty bad and leave some nasty shit behind. I'm stuck scrubbing. But I've also had some that just soak right up and doesn't seem to leave anything. You can heat it.
Pedro's on that level. I'll say it. Hold on, Pedro. I'm gonna sing your praises again, because that is one of the very few rosin dabs, and I'm not just talking the trop. You know what I mean? It was every single jar. I'm taking these Q-tips out, and I think I even did it on the Michigan Bros Grow Show. I swabbed it and pulled it out. Like, ain't nothing on this. This looks like BHO level, like just fucking nothing on there. And I was blown away. And it's just like that's just a small test, and it doesn't really like tell you much, but in regards to what we're talking about, I think it does. Pedro, my apologies for interrupting.
No, that's fine. I don't even remember what I was trying to say, but I think what I was actually getting at was too hot of a dab can also leave behind chaz as well, if you will, regardless of how good the product is. But I'm gonna be careful walking down the road of talking about the what's better, what's not. But as far as fats and lipids containing and leaving behind different, melt quality, let's call it. I would say that there can be both on both sides, and comes down to quality. Period.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was saying it comes down to quality, where you can have very, very quality BHO where it's not going to, where the melt quality is going to be very high, and you can have very, very, very good rosin that can, be very good melt quality. But you can also have dog shit on both sides as well.
Yeah, you can have you can have BHL that's gonna black your banger up like like a Chaz you've never seen before. But to your point with the fats and lipids and stuff, I don't know if anybody's mentioned this in chat yet, but when it comes to things like topicals and edibles, like fats and lipids are actually a good thing to have in there. So that's why I do like a edible grade BHO, because I know that I might be leaving a little extra fats and natural plant fats and lipids in there that aren't going to be chazzing up a banger or anything. They're going to be getting applied topically after being mixed in a pretty fantastic ingredient list, or ingested orally, in which it's going to help transport that THC into your system because it needs that, so it's not I'm soaps. Like there's a lot of reasons that you might want to collect the fats and lipids too. It's just such a low value product in the grand scheme of things that most people are chucking it.
Oh, and that's what I was saying is wash those fourth, fifth, sixth pulls, and there's nothing saying that you can't put it aside and run it at a later date. That's why I've done that quite a few times where, I'm like, all right, today's food grade day. I fucking hate it, but today's food grade day, it is what it is. But yeah, I think there's medicinal value in everything. And even on the rosin side as well, it's not done at the rosin level. You still got those pucks, and, everybody looks at those rosin pucks. They look at the, to see how much they've gotten out of it. Right. Well, I think all of us can understand that there's still rosin and that there's still medicinal value in that material. And we've proven it, of course, but there is, and they should be saved, and they should be used, and they can be used for topicals. They can be used for edibles. They can be used for a lot of different things. But man,
and just
the quality
so
that you're getting,
it's upwards of 20% in my hydrocarbon extraction experience of what's left in high grade, high quality live rosin bag. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but like a fresh frozen solventless to rosin to leftover bag. Like, yeah, I mean, better returns than any trim run I've ever done, any fresh frozen or dry, like, but it's already concentrated. That's the thing. It's like, think about blasting BHO, like you're going to have a high return.
I didn't see there was a starred feature over here. That's fucking nice to have.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Because I've been scrolling up to try to find them. I'm trying to keep on track.
Them onto a word pad.
Yeah, I'll say it real quick. If there's something that you've asked that we haven't answered because we're rambling, ask it again. I'm trying to scroll. It's not me. Try to scroll up. Try to say it again.
No, I'm saying that's a good idea. Listen to this, man.
Oh,
got a good idea. I'm not trying to blame you for anything.
Here's one real quick.
Rambling.
Oops, that wasn't the one. Somebody had asked up here earlier if I'd smoked out of a three-hole bowl for the old school, hash makers. And real quick answer: no, I have not. I've never used one.
I have one around here somewhere.
Here it is, right here. I must have scrolled and clicked a different one. I don't know which question I even clicked on.
I randomly found mine in a bottom of a cardboard box like a month ago, cleaning out the back of the office.
Nice.
Haven't seen it in 8 years. And one of those random things you come across.
What else we got? What we got for next question?
I think Alyssa starred. First, did we get to this? First time washing, I put a single tray in the freeze dryer for about 24 hours now. Taken out a few times to check. The large Pagel's already saying, don't do that. Don't fucking open it. Don't. It's like seedlings. Don't give it.
That's like the worst thing you can do. Like I'm sorry to ruin your day, but you've horribly fucked up already. But what's the rest of the question?
All right. So first time washing, I put a single tray in the freeze dryer for about 24 hours. I'll take it out a few times to check. Don't do that. Large chunks can be broken apart, but they still seem tacky and floppy, not brittle like powder. Should I increase the temp from 30 degrees to 40 degrees or just keep drying longer? What's the solution after you've already opened it up?
Dry longer.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically just going to kind of have to run the freeze dryer a little bit longer. And there's so many variables that are in this that I could, we could literally do a video call and I could ask you a lot of things. But it sounds to me like the room most likely is not in a cold room. So as you're opening the freeze dryer, you're immediately reintroducing moisture via condensation back into the freeze dryer. And if it's
and
not
also potentially melting those heads.
I was just going to say, it very well may never be a powder form if it's in a warm room, because you're kind of just melted the heads already together.
And it's surprising how fast that happens, though. Especially, I mean, if you're
within a minute.
Yeah. If you have a thicker patty and you didn't really give those trays a good shake, or you dumped a shitload of hash, that thicker patty will do that a lot faster. The weight of the trichomes on each other in a warm room will weld those little fuckers together.
I can't tell you how many times I have pulled it a little early or checked it or whatever, and I'll get it into the press room and and I get down to the middle and there's a fucking chunk.
I was really surprised by the use of the FLIR cameras.
Oh, good call. I didn't even think about that.
Hitting it with a FLIR camera, you can see if there is still any ice chunks in the middle.
Not a bad idea. But yeah, but anyway, when you have moisture in your hash, especially when you're at the bagging process and you're down to the end where it's a nightmare. So essentially what I'm saying, never pull it early. Have patience, let it finish. And when you pull it out of the freeze dryer, get that fucker in a cold room real quick. Like real quick.
Yeah. When I first set up, my freeze dryer was up here in my office, and I had to pull the trays, walk down a flight of stairs out into the cold room. And that was too far.
That's way too far.
So now I've moved the freeze dryer right next to the cold room. It has to be.
Yeah, mine was within 4 feet of the cold room in the last setup that I had.
Don't play peekaboo. Nice, Grateful.
All right, where are we at? How do we hide that one? I don't know how to do this.
Click it again.
You click it again. Here's one. Let's just go through the next one. When in the last wash or two? Oh, that's one I was already done. Why didn't we unstar that? Is there more fat? We already did that one. Put a single
Purple,
tray.
if you're
Oh, they're already
here,
gone.
How's your experience been with that new little washer? Would love to hear. He's using the Aether Green, I believe.
I don't know that I know what that is.
It's a very cool little washer for home grows.
Cool.
One sec.
I might have to look into it then.
Oh, he said it is in a warm room, unfortunately. So, Purple, that might have actually been dry when it was in the freeze dryer, and then taking it out to do the inspection is where you ended up.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on your timing of when you checked it from when you
Right.
pulled
24
it.
hours, though. I mean,
Somebody send me this link, please.
whoops. See, now I did it, Pedro.
Good. I feel so much better now, dude. I feel so much better.
Yeah, it's just a little baby washer. The only thing I have a question about, really, is their drain.
There it was. I'll have to take a look into this. And
where's their drain?
I guess I could take a look at it right here, right?
I'm not a fan of the drain, but everything else looks like a great little small scale home washer. Oh.
What's the deal with that drain, dude?
I don't know. That drain bugs me.
Well, I'm trying to.
Why is it shaped like that?
What is it? Like,
it's like the not accordion hose. I guess accordion hose, but it doesn't collapse. It's so that you can rotate it and move it and get it to stay in a position. It reminds me of those freaking desk fans.
Yeah, or like a little tripod.
Yeah, there you go.
Tripod. Doesn't seem like it'd be. I would rather just have like a hose. You know, just a straight
seems
hose.
like too many places for hash to get trapped.
Yeah,
and mold to grow.
Yeah,
water to get left behind when you're cleaning. That's the only problem I had with it, but everything else, it's a neat little unit.
Yeah, let's see some more pictures. I don't like that hose. Let's quit looking at it. Oh shit, okay.
So it is a small little tabletop unit.
Yeah. I like the bag drying thing. Little stand or whatever they had. Nice clips on there.
It's got the insulation jacket. It's got the bottom screen. There you go, Weezen.
Interesting. I'm going to look at that more. I've got thoughts on both sides.
So I didn't realize that comes with it. It looks like an integrated pump with a sprayer for recirculating your
recirc
battery powered one. That's kind of nice. Probably food.
Interesting new changes, right? Different things. It's not something we've seen before. With a lot of, it looks like a repurposed beer.
That's a plug-in. I thought it was battery powered. It's a plug-in. You can see the cord there. Which, you know, fine, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
3 meter cord. Maybe 2. I don't know.
But they even have an insulation jacket on this, so you can keep that nice and cold if you can for the recirculating. Interesting for a small one.
Yeah, it is. It's
what's the price point?
Cool little move. I think I saw 15 on it.
1,500. Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
To me right now, I try to be careful.
If you're already buying a freeze dryer, though,
yeah,
you're all in.
you're pretty much in. To me, the 15 doesn't seem horrible. I just want to make sure I look at it first.
100%.
Before I put my Pedro stamped seal of approval on it. But right now, from what I see, 15 doesn't seem horrible.
It seems like about the right price is what I was thinking. If you're talking the little recirculating bucket system, the washer,
here's my thing. That's not gonna convert me. That's not a. I want to say it's not a starter set, but it does feel like a starter set. You know what I mean? It's kind of an expensive jump to make. It's a great starter set. It feels like
it feels like you need to know that you're in at that point.
Yes.
So like
you've got a few tents going, or maybe like a second room,
and you buy the 5-gallon washer, and you wash with a 5-gallon washer, and you air dry using Frenchie's technique. and you figure out if you like that extra work, because it changes your harvest. It changes your workload after the fact. You have to have freezer space. You got to create ice. You got to store ice. You know, you start figuring out all the little shit that goes with it. If you at that point, you're like, you know what? Air drying sucks. I want a freeze dryer. So you buy the freeze dryer. That's kind of where I was going with it, Pedro, is I'm wondering if it's going to be too small for where they're priced. So where
That was
my
first, very first
5-gallon
thought.
washer was a 20-gallon stainless.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
reason I went this way is because of the time investment with a 5-gallon. With the amount that
right.
that I harvest and I'm washing everything, the 5-gallon meant I had to wash from sun up till middle of the night. This means I do my washes 4 times faster.
It's a scalability of efficiency thing. And if you're investing, it's not just $1,500 into that. It's another $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on top of it to get to that level. You're just operating at a smaller scale. I think you guys are right. I think this should be like a $800 unit, and they should have a next level that's maybe $1,500, $2,000. That's maybe got a couple more upgrades, and it's, you know, that 20-gallon size.
Yep, I would agree with that. And then that kind of brings us to. I would agree with that as well.
Mhm.
I would agree with that as well. That brings me to the next question here that I saw, and this has been twice in chat now that they brought it up. So I want to definitely make sure that we got to this. Is what's your average input on the 5-gallon washers? And unfortunately, everybody wants a number. Everybody wants how many grams to throw in. You know, they want that number. And for me, that's not what it is. It's more of a visual volume. You know, it's more of a kind of a 50% full ratio. You know, maybe a little bit more than 50%. Maybe that's 65% full. Rather than in grams. Yeah.
So you know how some strains are like real dense, like, you know, hard nugs, and some strains are those big fluffy, like, you know, colas. Is that kind of what you're talking about on how, like,
it's exactly what I'm talking about?
Okay. Yeah.
100%.
Because, you know, 500-600 grams of one strain is not going to equal the same volume as 500 or 600 grams of another strain. It could be
1,000,000%.
250-300 grams is the same volume because it takes but can I also ask a follow-up question? Do you find that the strains that take up more volume but have less weight give higher return ratios?
Ask that one more time. Sorry, I was looking up chat here.
So you got dense strains, and we'll call them fluffy strains for lack of better words. The fluffy strains that take up more volume in your washer, do those give higher returns?
Yes.
Yeah, per volume. Okay, that's what I imagine. Just because it's harder to access those trichomes, right? On a high density strain. Yeah.
I do not want big dense nuggets. I don't want dense nuggets at all, but I definitely don't want big dense nuggets. I'm looking for more of that. I'll go with that term, airy, you know, fluffy kind of, you know, more of a fluffy kind of airy.
Since I've switched to washing 100%, I've adjusted my parameters to avoid dense. I want bigger, fluffier, airy. I'm fine with foxtails, all the other shit.
Absolutely, dude. Foxtails are just fine. Dude. That's more fucking surface area. Dude. I'm just fine with that. Yeah, when I'm growing and I'm looking at something, just like somebody's looking at something for a cultivar for its growth structure or you know, its terpene content or this and that. A hash maker's looking for something that's going to throw some
trichome
more
accessibility.
Buds. Yeah, there you go. I like it.
It's surface area where trichomes grow. Doesn't matter what that surface area is, where it is.
As long as it's got the trikes, and as long as I can get to it, you know.
Right.
And that's why I brought up like trimming. I think it was on MBGS. Now I think about it, on Sunday. I brought up how important it is to trim to those last nodes all the way up, like if you're preparing for fresh frozen, because you can't be throwing a big old, you know, yeah, it looks cool, your 5.5 gram nug that you could have dried and sold as flour or whatever. But guess what? That 5.5 gram nug that's now in my column like that isn't very helpful. And you've also left a 0.5 gram of stem on there. You know what I mean? So it's just like, can we maybe just do this better?
Yeah, my first wash was not trimmed for hash. And so I had and I also made the mistake of stacking the bags, and I had nice solid blocks of bud. It was great. It was fun material to wash.
All right, explain stacking the bags.
Weight inside the freezer. I have a vertical freezer, so the thought was you put them in the bags, you seal them, and you drop them in, and you start stacking them.
I see what you're saying.
And then you get about to the fourth one, and that bottom bag has got all that extra weight, and the bag is pressing on, squeezing your trichomes and breaking everything. Yeah. It's just a mess. So
you get stuck together.
Properly vertically stacking, so you don't put weight of each other on it.
Or get an upright freezer with some shelves in there, and
or just use containers that can be stacked in your freezer.
Right. Yeah.
We have walk-in freezers at Eden, and of course we're going to use the stackable capped units, the black with the yellow, the tops, whatever the hell they are.
Yep, I got a million of those.
Are your walk-in freezers built into the building, or are they a standalone unit inside of the building, or are they
standalone inside the unit? Standalone inside the building.
Okay, because I've designed a few different processing facilities that had different types of freezers, and I've always been curious to know what everyone else is doing. You go behind a Wendy's, right? And there's not just a dumpster. Sometimes there's a freezer back there, and it's like a big ass walk-in freezer or refrigerator or something in there. It's like butts right up against the drive-through screen,
They're always right there.
Yeah. It's
and you also have the trailers they drop off that are the giant freezers, people that didn't design their facility, and now I'm out of freezer space.
You got too much food. Not enough space.
Well, I'm gonna take another dab while everybody else starts thinking about more questions. What else you guys got? I think I've scrolled back. I don't think I see any that we haven't got to. So
is this one? Shouldn't one tray be dry after 24 hours? I'm curious his FD settings.
Generally, the freeze dryer settings that I recommend, most of the freeze dryer runs will run between 30 and 36 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say I go generally about 30 hours. Just depends. I notice it's different where my shit's at too.
Fucking love it. Who did it?
That wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
I didn't touch the keyboard.
You did it again?
No, I didn't. I was touching my nipples, dude. I'm touching it. No,
that was 100% intentional. Trying to get some questions here. Come on, let's keep the questions rolling, people. We're at our halfway point. We're all ready for another dab, but we want to hear some more questions. It is the variables. Ask us anything. AUA.
I love it. I love it.
I generally won't run my freeze dryer unless it's full.
Yeah, I don't generally run, but again, we need to remember we got home growers, right? And maybe they ran that 4x8 canopy, and they got 2 ounces of hash, and and they're ready to, or you know what I'm saying? They don't have as much,
right? Yeah, it didn't dump or whatever. Yeah,
or their run was just what it was.
You run what you end up with, obviously, and sometimes. But I don't know that I've ever had just one tray to run.
And I'm trying to remember, there was one tray, if it was the top or the bottom tray, was the better idea.
The heat rises.
There was a better tray to use.
Top tray is going to be warmer than the bottom tray. I believe that have you seen is it Pele that's got the freeze dryer modification where he changes all the sensors and replaces?
He does. Yep. I haven't messed with it yet. It does take a little bit of ripping the thing apart. I think we had talked about getting this one, but we wanted to make sure I had my room redesigned, reset up again, rebuilt.
Yeah, I don't really want to open my freeze dryer and change all its guts
Yeah,
out.
it scares me a little bit. It
Right.
scares me a little bit.
That's an expensive piece of machinery that it works. It may piss me off every now and then, but it works. I'm afraid after I do that, it won't work.
I'm heating up over here for a dab. You guys want to join me? We're about I'll call it a minute and a half, 2 minutes out.
Well, the beauty of this enal coil is the fact that you don't have to wait for your torch to heat up the banger.
You
It's
really
just
need to make a
awesome.
graphic you can pop up when you do this pitch.
I think I do. And speaking of graphics and speaking of questions, we'll pop in on this one from our buddy Spartan Grown. Is it true? The bigger the beard, the better the processor?
I am
And
fucked.
I mean, there are some times when you just have to Google Spartan grown beard on fire and you find a meme generator with his beard on fire and he's sitting at a Game of Thrones guitar. Fucking, what is this? Who made this?
I don't know who made it, but I forgot about the beard on fire.
Spartan, your beard might be longer than mine, but it has incurred some damage in the past. And you know what? I think I have to agree. The bigger the beard, the better the processor. I'll give it up to Spartan and Pedro for this one.
I would have to agree there, but I got to go back and say that unfortunately, you just can't get as manly of a dab as I can over here with this blender. With your
don't make me make this red hot. I will turn this thing up to 1200 degrees, and I will be crying in a minute.
Do you really want a dab competition with Pedro?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. Don't make me do this. We know emails can get hot. That and my dab rig is not clean at all. So maybe next week.
I was scrubbing mine 10 minutes before the show because she was a little dirty after Let's Be Buds.
Yeah, I regret not doing mine. Well, the backup one is clean, but I just haven't swapped them out and unchazzed my banger and all that fun stuff.
Let's see.
Here's one. Do you have a trichome type
yes.
you feel wash better, like the shape and form of it? And I know there's an answer to this, but I don't know it because I'm not a solventless guy. I don't focus on these things. I just want to catch them all.
Yes, absolutely. That's another kind of a thing as you're going through, as we're talking about characteristics that we're looking for, growth, that we're looking for. If you're growing for flower, it's something completely different than growing for hash. Again, you want that dense flower for flower if you're going to, be growing for flower. But if you're growing for hash, again, we want more of that lighter, fluffier kind of flower. Well, the same thing with trichome heads when you're going in. If you have a really sandy trichome head, you can pretty much assume that doesn't have a hell of a lot of oil in it. So it's not going to press very much. Now, if you have something where you're going in and it's just sticky as all hell,
greasy,
that's beautiful. Well, there's a difference there as well. What? Now, if we're talking between sticky and oily, fuck oily. Oily is as bad as sandy. So there's that medium in there. But generally, what I'm looking for is what I like to call a sticky sandy. And what I'm kind of looking for there is definitely a fat head. So when you start scoping something, you want something with a fat head. You want something that is, yeah, you want something that has skinny neck, fat head. So it's going to break, it's going to drop without a bunch of agitation. And again, we're talking about that ratio. So you want something that's going to have the most oil to the waxy cuticle content. So to answer your question, looking for forget the wax or forget the sticky sandy, because that's just going to just confuse everybody. Sticky, and if you're going to get down to scoping it and everything, which I think everybody should do, but not everybody necessarily does. If you're going to get down to scoping it, then you want something with just a fat head.
Now, can I ask something on that same level? What about those plants that the trichome heads just seem to sieve off on their own? You know what I mean? Like when you're like trimming them or something, they're just dust everywhere. Are those better? I would assume those are better for your process, right? Versus like a greasy.
Frenchie called it the ripe fruit just falling off the tree.
There you go. Okay. What about this?
Real quick there, my variable, real quick, right there, to add at the my variable is that I don't trim. So I can't answer that question. We're talking about fresh frozen.
Yeah.
So I can't answer that question.
But
then that's a very big variable to consider.
And it is. And I think, I'll be honest, I think it's important to take those plants into a flower state if you're also taking them, you know, solely for the purpose of fresh frozen, just for the sake of educating yourself.
Doesn't hurt to have that education.
Yeah, because I mean, I've seen a lot of plants finish 2 weeks later than I thought they would too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that goes to this question: when are you pulling plants? Because I've heard in recent years, I guess, especially when the rosin game really got big, that a huge amount of people were pulling quote unquote early for lighter color. Like we're talking, you know, 6-7 weeks or whatever.
They were.
Yeah.
Are they still?
A lot of some places.
I'll bet a lot still are. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's racier, right? You
Oh,
lose.
yeah.
It is. It gives you, it's more of a sativa high. I call it sativa.
I know what you mean. We know.
I hate it, but I'm in the fucking market, so we have to fucking do it.
We're here.
So yeah, it's more of that racy high. And unfortunately, it's number one, lack of education, but it's misinformation coming from the dispensaries, coming from the bud tenders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody wants that color, and when you open a jar, and the bud tender doesn't necessarily even have to say that lighter is better, but when they open the jar and they're like, "But look at this one," and it's just it's that gorgeous light color, and you know. Now, having said that, a lighter color in a lot of cases does mean better. There are, if you get into a darker color, most I will hesitate to say, but also most of the darker things you're going to get are going to not be as desirable. But let's go back and answer the question. When are we pulling the plant? As a solventless processor, that took a long time to say that word. As a solventless processor, I'm 5 to 10% all day long, 5 to 10%. Now you start getting into the commercial market, and unfortunately, a couple days here and there on either side, we know can make a big difference. But sometimes those decisions have to be made. I think we all know why, you know.
Right.
But I still like to try to do a 5 to 10%. And then, having said that, we need to somehow, I think, via these podcasts, via the social media, via whatever way we can, the community, get the information out there, educate that darker doesn't mean worse. You know, darker doesn't mean bad.
Well, Frenchie was definitely on that game, right?
Yeah. I mean, darker can mean oxidation, and darker, like I said, can mean a little bit. It can mean worse. You know,
degraded. I think
degraded, right?
In the past, but also mature is potentially a parallel word there.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about,
and we're talking about preference as well.
Exactly. Variables and philosophy.
When you're talking pulling early at a commercial setting, though, too, I mean, you're not just, it's hard to fight the mindset of the color, but also the mindset of, and I'm going to save this amount of time, which is going to equate to this in
an extra harvest, and in the next in a 2 years time, I'm going to get an extra harvest.
That's a hard one to sell at the business level. To say no, you should take it longer. It's going to make our rosin darker.
It's a simple formula, right? And then we're not going to do math live tonight, but it really is. If I have 5 harvests a year and I can fit in 6, well, then what is my inputs? My expenses for that 6th grow? Is it anything additional, or does it equal out because I've now in the same time frame got an extra grow? And then what is the returns? And this is the thing that they might not be necessarily doing the math on, is the fact that you might be getting higher returns because you've given each harvest an extra week instead of, or week and a half, maybe even, instead of taking away that last bit of, again, that's really strain dependent, I think. But if all you're doing is going for, color or something like that, then yeah, like if that's your modus operandi, fucking get after it, pull early, have fun, and get an extra harvest in. You're going to have different effects, and
it's the difference between a businessman and a grower.
Yeah.
And what things that we've learned over the years of growing that they're still trying to figure out, and fit it into an existing framework.
How many times have you heard commercial facilities get excited about the fact that they don't have to necessarily put so much time and effort into a dry room and trimming, or at least scheduling the trimming, as they do when it comes to fresh frozen harvesting, which can be basically done in the same room as a grow? Have you guys
all the facilities I've been in that do fresh frozen also do flower? So
right, but
they're mixed, so they already had the dry rooms. They're like rosin.
Now here's my follow-up question: are they putting part of their harvest towards fresh frozen because they don't have the dry room capacity? Because I've run into that a lot also. And it's like, well, here's a simple solution, guys. Diversify your fucking business. Like,
right. More SKUs. That's right. Just.
I'm so high, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. So I don't even know. I don't know how to answer anything. I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out what you were saying by what you were talking about, but I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. So, and I was getting ready to take another dab. So,
all right, well, too bad, because this one's for you. I know this one's for you. Half dry versus fresh frozen.
I prefer half dry. Well, I prefer a half dry, right? And here, even again, we're talking variables. What is half dry? What is full dry? Let's go there first, because we don't know half dry without full dry, right?
10-12% moisture content.
Well, is it 10 or is it 12? We need a fucking number here, god damn it, right?
Depends on the regulations of your municipality that you're operating in.
variables. So we can't put a number on half dry. So what we can do is we can kind of give a visual or a physical characteristic, you know what I'm saying? So
for sure.
So what I like to do is when a plant is, when I walk up to it and the medium size bud, the medium, you know what I'm saying? The average size bud, when it's just starting to be crunchy on the outside, just a little bit of crunch to it, is when I like to buck as quickly as possible. Now, here comes variables again, right? If we're talking about a small home grow where you just harvested a 4x8 canopy, and you can get the whole thing done in one day, not a big deal, right? But
I cannot do my 4x8 in one fucking day.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, but you're probably right. If that's the case, good on you, because you had a good run, right? But if you're doing a commercial facility, you've got a crew, you've got a harvest crew, and you're harvesting an entire greenhouse, and now you've got to have drying capacity, and now you've got to try to monitor and keep everything separate and monitor based on the different variables. Are they the same size buds and or not, and the extra time, and it just becomes pretty much it becomes something that's impossible in the commercial market, to do some kind of a half dry. I've pushed it so much. And we've tried it a couple different times, but I've got shot down. And even I've agreed after I've seen what it takes and what it takes. I even agreed. It's just
even me going for a half dry, probably some of it's harvested pre-half, some of it's harvested at half, or bagged at half, and some's harvested or bagged a little more than half dry, just to get through the harvest. At home it gets to be a lot, and if you're not able to sit down for 8 hours and trim up, it's a lot of bucking and bagging.
I can answer it without directly answering it and saying that my last harvest in here was fresh frozen. It went straight into the freezer, just because. Not just because I had reasons, but
it's easier sometimes, and you reversed your mutes again.
Damn it! Is it easier, or are you just delaying the work?
Delaying the work isn't the word. Having the time to do the work. So it's not that we're delaying it. It's that
maybe that's just poor planning then.
The harvest for delaying, you're talking about delaying if I'm doing fresh frozen?
Well, yeah, I'm saying if you just, not because of planned reasons, but I'm saying if you just decide last minute to harvest all for fresh frozen, again, not particular to your situation, but if you just last minute decide to harvest for fresh frozen, it is in kind of a way it could be delaying the work, because you can put that work into a frozen state and not have to deal with it until you're ready to deal with it. Whereas if you're drying something like for flower, right? You're drying plants for flower, it's kind of an active thing where you've got to be on top of it almost down to not the hour, but at least the day of taking it to the next step, right? So
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's I hate to pitch this like this, because I don't necessarily, I haven't pitched it like this before, but if you think about it, you could just be stockpiling and delaying the work,
Yeah, I was just going to say, isn't all processing kind of delaying the work then by that definition?
Not if you're harvesting early and trying to get your solventless a brighter color just because of that, that's the opposite, I would say.
But you're still going to throw it in the freezer and delay that work until it's...
I guess you could, yeah, at that point.
So, by that definition, if you throw it in the freezer and you wait for 12 hours, you're delaying that work.
Ooh, so that's a good question. I'll put it in the chat. How long should you freeze your fresh frozen before you process it?
72 weeks.
What?
You guys want fucking numbers? I'm gonna throw numbers out there.
That's delaying the work, okay? That's a year plus like 3 months there.
I would say safely, again, a lot of variables, right? A lot of variables. But I would say safely 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
Enough so it's frozen through.
Yeah. I'm a 48-hour kind of guy, because I've broken up bags after 24 hours, and it's just like this.
Yeah, I would err on the 48 for sure.
Yeah.
Size of the freezer, power of the compressor, and how much shit are you putting in at once? Because you're introducing warm.
Are you stacking bags, or are you putting them vertically?
Yeah. A lot of variables.
Freezer hangers now. Just little clips.
Okay, now we're talking. You could do that totally. It wouldn't even be that hard. You just have to vacuum seal a bag with a little extra on the end and put a couple holes in it. Or a clip even. Yeah, you just clip it. Yeah. The fuck am I even talking about putting holes in things?
I've got the baby sock ones. Have you seen those? The hangers for baby socks. They have all the clips on the bottom.
Oh, I've seen the baby hangers, but not for socks. I don't think. Yeah, just grab a couple of those off Amazon and you're ready to go. Holy crap. Huh. So how do you hang them? Just like the basket that's in there, or you hook it up a PVC pipe in there or something?
You'd have to have a one that has the racks and hang it from the racks.
I mean, you could easily engineer like a PVC pipe that just like
Oh yeah.
forces itself into the wall. Oh wow. Wow. That's kind of impressive.
That's
Not gonna lie.
stainless already too.
Yeah, and it's got it's clip. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and
that's
it's not
nice.
going to come off. It's got the safety shit. So
Yeah, that's nice. Holy shit. How much are those things? Sell the two of them, maybe?
$17 for two.
For one or two? For two? Okay.
For two.
That's reasonable. I feel like that's reasonable. Especially if they are actually stainless steel. All right, let's get on to another question. This one I'm going to pitch to Superior. Why do we drive on a parkway and park in the driveway?
Why do they call it taking a dump?
Oh no.
No.
This is semantics.
That's the things that come up in my head too. None of the shit makes sense. We're not here to answer the questions.
So I think about when I'm pooping.
Yeah. Ask Chat
All right.
GPT.
Yeah, maybe we should. What's the best storage container for fresh frozen? This one is confusing to me because when I think storage container for fresh frozen, I'm thinking deep freezer, I guess. But if they're talking about like the bags that you're putting them in, that does make a difference. And there's a few ways you can go about doing this. I've seen people go the god awful way of just dumping everything into a black trash bag and putting it into a cooler and filling it up and just thinking that's okay, and it's not. Don't do that. There's another option.
Explain why that's not okay.
We'll get there. There's another option that is a little bit better, significantly better, but it's still not great, and that's like a turkey bag. And that's one of the things that most growers have on hand, right? And it's because we like to kind of cure or finish or just store our trimmed up flour in a turkey bag. So if you got
it's convenient with a 5-gallon bucket.
right, and so if those are just hanging around, you just stuff all your fresh frozen in there, right? And then you throw it in the freezer and you're good to go, right? No, wrong. Reason being, a few different reasons. And the one on that one, I would say the most important one is in terms of long-term storage is the fact that you're going to get oxidation. And the way you avoid oxidation is by vac-sealing a bag. So you remove most of, not all, but most of the air out of the container or the bag while the fresh frozen is in it via a vacuum sealer. And when you pull out the air and you get it to a frozen temperature, it pretty much freezes it in place in terms of the quality, quantity, and everything else you're going to get out of it. So if you can remove the ability for the buds, the nugs, the fresh frozen to oxidate, and you remove the ability for them to get over the temperature of frozen, and we're talking like Superior said, frozen all the way through, you got to make sure we're not just like throwing it in the freezer for 10 minutes and, assuming it's good to go. You got to freeze it all the way through. I mean, it's frozen in place at that point. I've processed stuff lazily, like we talked about. Months later, I've put fully processed extracts vac-sealed in a deep freezer and pulled them out years later, and there has been no degradation of quality in either of those products. And so I think, removing those two factors, the temperature or just keeping it frozen, and then also removing the ability to get it oxidized, you're good to go. So, but to get there, a tote, a turkey bag, 5-gallon bucket, anything that's not a vac sealed bag is not going to get you that level of quality. So you kind of got to go that route. The other caveat, and I have to finish with this, is if you're vac sealing fresh frozen, do not just, there's a lot of different vac sealers out there, I get it, but do not just click the button that says vac seal and walk away. There's a certain little kind of like level you have to get the bags vac sealed to before you can actually seal them. And so when you see, if you got like a pillow, we'll call it, of fresh frozen like this in a bag, and then you're going to vac seal it right. You could vac seal it, and start compressing those nugs down to like a brick. If you do that, it's all going to become useless. So don't do that. You have to tend to your vac sealer. You have to watch it. And the second it starts doing this, it compresses pretty much at all. You've got most of the air out of there, and you can seal it off at that point. So again, if it's like this and it goes like that, vac seal it. It goes like this, it goes like that, seal it up. It goes like this and it goes like that. You've gone way too far. And you got to start over. Good luck. I'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah, finding that balance where there's not extra air in there, but you're not squishing shit down into a brick is rough.
And man, then you start talking about in a commercial environment, and it gets extremely labor intensive to do any kind of a vac sealing step in the process. We've even considered doing the vac sealing for the clear tech that, simply for, well, not simply, but anyways, for the clear tech. And it's just not feasible, when you start talking about the labor that goes into it. But also, in the commercial market, another variable is how soon are you going to get to it? If you're going to get to it in the next week, fucking whatever, get to it. It's nothing that big of a deal. Now you're talking about let it sit there for the next month or 2 months, and it's going to start being a big deal. But essentially, yeah, like Fergorley said, don't just dump it into a tote. I would minimally dump it into a lined tote. You can get a heavy duty liner for a lot of these totes and use that, seal it up as well as you can, and then get to it as quickly as you can. If you're going to go for a longer term, then yes, not unfortunately, I call it unfortunately because it's kind of a labor intensive and a very sensitive step. But then, yeah, go ahead and freeze dry it if you're going to have long-term storage. I can't argue with that.
I'll have to take a video of our vacuum machine for you. So our product goes through bags built around it, vac seals it to exactly a specific pressure, injects a scent in, and then heat seals it and kicks them off. It is the wildest thing I've ever seen.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's like in Christmas when you open a package from our factory, it smells like, gingerbread.
That's kind of cool. What's next one? What else we got?
No, I'm sorry. I've got such a conspiracy theory I want to share with you guys on that note, but I'm going to wait until after the show because it is so goddamn ridiculous. Please don't forget to remind me. So let's do a couple rapid fire questions.
Okay.
If we can answer these fairly quickly, and I'm going to start with Superior on this one. What strains are you three excited about washing currently or in the near future, perhaps?
I'm excited to get the Maui Wowie Ran again.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to search the Pineapple Pheno out again.
Fuck yeah.
So that one was some of the best rosin I've made. So I just want to reproduce it. See if it's reproducible. Right.
Okay. Pedro?
I don't think I have an answer for that.
No terp profiles or anything that you're kind of interested in? Maybe
something. If I'm looking for anything, I liked his answer of the Maui Wowie because I like the sweeter strains. So,
I like that answer too. The Pineapple Express, like all that kind of shit. Man, that just brought me back for a second.
When Eden dumped that Trop C this year, that was just that heavy fucking lemon profile. It's just like lemon or lemon orange, I guess we should call it. It was like, fuck, dude. I love that sweeter kind of a lemony.
That's where I was at in my own garden, as I was really excited about the squirt because I thought it was going to be like that grapefruit Durban kind of profile. And even looking at like this jar I showed you guys earlier, the GFD, that's grape fun dip. And we constantly are, when we look at this, we say grapefruit Durban still. And it's been 6 years since I grow that strain or something like that. It's just so ingrained in my brain. But that grapefruit flavor, I'm definitely excited for. I'm excited to try the second round on the squirt, and then also the raspberry parfait, just because of the effects. I mean, I was so blown away by just how intense and how focused like the immediate effects and long-term effects of that strain were, that I'm excited to kind of keep that going. Let's get on to another one. What can you make with your plant waste? I'll jump in on this one real quick. We've actually taken stalks and made teepees out of them, and so like there's you think the mic stands from Mendo Dope, right?
Nice.
Like there's a lot of different things you could do with the quote unquote waste of your plant, but another huge thing we do is feed chickens. You know,
I make eggs
there you
out
go.
of mine. Yep, I turn my
Exactly.
plant waste into eggs.
Look at that fucking xylophone. You guys got some spoiled ass chickens. Holy shit.
Got to give them something to do, man. There's 10 feet of snow around them half the damn year.
Yeah, my chickens had
Adam.
a leftover mirror, and then they decided to knock it over and break it.
Oh, shit. Add them to your compost bin. Compost them.
Yeah.
Compost pile, hopefully. But
what about this one? Preface on grow room glasses. Well, it's not that I wear Method 7s.
Bro, Method 7s all fucking day long.
8 years or anything.
That's all I've worn for the last 8 years or so.
Yeah. And I love GML. I haven't actually tried his glasses, so I don't really have an opinion on that, to be quite frank. But yeah, Method 7, I mean...
I believe I have a discount code out there right now still, too.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
Pedro grows rosin.
Yeah, I don't know. Go look it up. PagesGrowroom.com. You'll find it.
Nice. So this one's kind of interesting and probably something you guys have to answer for us. And also this is the one that won the duck race over on Let's Be Buds. I think he popped over from the Fergola YouTube channel, got into Let's Be Buds, like made a comment, got in the race, all that kind of stuff. So any tips for setting up a home hash lab on a budget? What equipment is most important to invest in first? And again, I assume we're not talking like freeze dryers. Like take that out of the equation.
Yeah, freeze dryer.
We're not talking room. Like like what? Let's on a budget. What is a budget like for a first time hash maker? Is it $300, $500, $800?
The very first thing. I don't care if it's budget or not. The very first thing I will always tell anyone that is trying to get into processing their own material into hash is you have to have a cold room. So unfortunately, you know, make it as budgeted as you can, but you have to have a cold room. So
or a way to make a room cold. Like if you live in the north,
that's where I was getting at.
In the garage, and you can, in the middle of winter, you can wash
you
hash.
have to have a
4 months a year.
I've had friends of mine in emergencies put an air conditioner in a grow tent and make a cold room there. It's not efficient and effective, or I guess it's effective but not efficient, but it can be done. So a cold room first and foremost, which I recommend a hard foam insulation, a cool bot, and a decently sized air conditioner. From there, obviously you need washers, properly modified. You're going to need some sprayers. You're going to need some water containers. You're going to need some water pumps. You're going to need RO water.
Yeah, you start getting into, you want clean water. You want to be able to store it and keep it cold.
It sounds like you guys are not talking about budget, though.
Well,
I feel like you guys are way okay.
To me, anybody that wants to start talking to me about this, that is budget. However you can get there, we can start, picking apart each individual thing. But I'm Pedro. Do you fucking want to wash hash or don't you?
Like, to me, I would not consider washing hash until I could get a freeze dryer. Until I knew I was ready to get a free, because without it, drying hash is a nightmare. If you're going to I mean, you can do it with the funnel and the pizza boxes, and people are successful with it, but it's hard to be consistent. You got to really be good at that shit. I sucked at it. That's why I gave up back. Fuck that.
I mean,
A
as far as I'm
freeze-dryer,
concerned, there's just minimal things that you have to do, you know. And then I mean, you can step up from there.
For sure. I
But-
totally get that. But what are we talking minimum investment if I want to, as a home grower, get into a budget hash lab?
The freeze dryer is what's really gonna fucking stick you in the back.
Just give me a number.
I could do it for $5K to start.
I would say I could do it for $5K.
Okay.
Easily.
Right.
Not easily, but I could do it
Right.
for
You would
$5K.
be skimping. I mean, you may not have an insulated room, but you're going to have a cool bot with an AC. You're going to have a freeze dryer. You're going to have something to wash in, whether it's 5-gallon, because those are cheap. The 5-gallon washers are cheap, and that works fine for a long
budget.
time.
Again, we're talking budget.
Right.
Like, you
But
guys
that
are so far
cold
past
room-
that.
that cold room and the freeze dryer are the two things that will change your quality to a whole other level that makes it worth doing.
Okay.
To
Yeah,
me,
I mean,
I did not want to waste my harvest on what I was getting without a freeze dryer.
we are consistently changing, modifying our room temp in our processing room within a 10-degree window. You know, look back and I'm like, hey man, turn that up a couple degrees, or turn that down a couple degrees. I need a little higher, a little lower. So we're constantly. So yeah, unfortunately, like I would say $5K.
And you really, like, you got to know that that's what you want to do. It's a money investment. It's a different time investment. You save time on the harvest and the trim, but there's post-process time now. So like you said, you're pushing off the work. So it's still there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you really got to know that's what you want to do.
Yeah, it's going to be an investment, and that's why a lot of people turn away from it. But yeah, I mean, it's an investment. You got to know that that's what you want to do. I mean, do the math. If you're gonna smoke your own, if you're gonna smoke rosin, and you're gonna buy it from a dispensary, what are you gonna spend? How long is it gonna take you to spend $5,000? You know. I mean, I like to do math like that. So, and you can find a used freeze dryer. You know, there's ways you can cut corners. It's just it's not unfortunate, but it is unfortunate, I guess. It's just the way it is. Do you want to fucking make hash or not?
Yeah. It's kind of like with BHO for Growly, right? With solvent processing at all. Besides, the old blasting of tubes and shit. Like at your level,
I was going to say,
there's a commitment.
What is it for you, for Growly? What's the
Yeah.
entry level for you?
Pull it up. This is what I would consider probably entry level for, and this is even, maybe this is it. Hold on. Yeah, it's this one. So there you go, $2,000.
So just $2,000 run in your garage. That's it.
I mean, you're gonna need solvent. You're gonna need a freezer. You're gonna need a vac sealer, right? You're gonna need all these other like kind of not directly related items to kind of get you there.
Do you need a cold room, or do you need just
No.
a clean room?
No. So this is sleeved materials column. That's the difference between this one and this one. This doesn't have a sleeve on it. It's a naked column. So on this one, we can fill up the sleeve with dry ice, and that keeps the materials column and the solvent as it comes in, especially if we're chilling it previously. That that keeps it at that negative 40 to negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it stays that way until it gets into these collection bases. Now, this is a little bit more than what I have going on in mine. It's a little bit different. Mine's wider, not as tall, and doesn't have, I don't think it's, this actually looks jacketed, and mine's not jacketed. So this probably is going to be a little more expensive. But basically what I did is I took a similar configuration to this and just slowly upgraded it over time. And yeah, it's probably more on the kind of $2,000, $2,500 scale in terms of the stainless steel equipment I'm using. I don't use a vacuum oven for vacuum oven purposes. It's just a temperature controlled environment for me. So you can find that in, a lot of different things. So that's probably at the window. I mean, post-processing equipment, things like that. I think all said and done, probably not more than 3,500, and that's
not bad.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
No, I mean, I had no idea. I had no range to even judge by. So,
no, I did. I didn't know if it was going to be $3,000
right.
or 10 grand, 12 grand.
Just like if you look at solventless processing equipment, though, you'll look at any of the big guys. It's like, oh, it's 35 grand to buy a. Yeah, like what the fuck?
Oh, now let's go here. Let's go here. I gotta get this. I think this is a really good question, actually. Somebody that doesn't know what they're doing it for their first few times, would you recommend them going down the hash route or going down the hydrocarbon route?
What's the difference?
What
you
is
said
it?
Hash and hydrocarbon?
Okay, sorry. going down the bubble hash route. Good cook. Okay, I like it. I love it. Actually, my mind does obviously then do that.
I honestly, the biggest part of it, the most obvious part of it would be risk and your ability to understand, comprehend, and be adverse and assess and plan around that risk.
So definitely much more knowledge.
I don't think that's the right
safety conscious.
After almost. I said that, I was thinking of whether or not that was the way I wanted to say that.
I there's definitely just a different level of risk assessment. That goes
risk, I would agree with 1,000,000%, and that's kind of where I would say that's kind of where my question revolved is for a first timer. What do you recommend? Definitely recommend taking classes, getting education.
Well, yeah, I mean, watch every fucking variables podcast there is. Watch the Michigan Bros Grow Show. Try to find the Grow Tube. Like, just consume the content. I mean, before I had the equipment, and before I ever ran it, I spent 72 hours consuming nothing but educational content regarding hydrocarbon processing, whether it was on YouTube or on forums. Or, I mean, I guess that was kind of it because that was really the only place you could find it. But I literally spent 3 days straight from sun up to sundown educating myself on how to do this because I was nervous and I didn't know what it was going to take to make it happen. It was my first time and I didn't want to fuck up. I didn't want to, have any reason for an excuse, if you will. And so I wanted to feel confident enough that I was going to do it right. And I didn't touch it until I was confident enough that I was going to do it right. And I don't think anyone should go down that path until they're confident enough that they can do it right. And it takes a certain level of understanding. Everything from thermodynamics to, something as simple as reading a pressure gauge to understanding timing and being on top of it. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and there's a lot of moving parts when you wouldn't expect there to be. But at the same time, it's like muscle memory, and once you do it enough times, it's that whole risk kind of doesn't go out the window, but it almost becomes like not an afterthought. What's the word I'm looking for here? it just becomes part of that muscle memory. And it's like, it's always there. It's always scheduled. It's always on time, but you don't have to worry about it, you know? And if you do, it's because you're immediately able to assess what the problem might be, or where there might be a problem, whether or not there is a problem. And so, yeah, I think maybe there's a lot that goes into it that's kind of unseen or unspoken for. But I also think if I can do it, it's just about anybody can do it.
I would say obviously just be careful and educate yourself on both sides of the fence, because man, there's some mistakes that can be made on both sides of the fence that are just traumatic to minimally the end result.
Yes. Right.
But on the hydrocarbon route, obviously for the risk level, make sure you educate yourself. And I would recommend on both sides of the fence taking some kind of classes. You know,
hey, listen, I was certified in filling propane tanks, so I have a very basic understanding of the temperatures, pressures, and the fact that liquid propane goes from a 1-to-1 ratio to a 400-to-1 ratio when it converts to a gas. So think about one propane tank, and now you've let it out, and now it's 400 propane tanks. You know what I mean? Like, just
that's kind of cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know that number. That's kind of cool. I like to know that number. Actually,
is that why they tell
me valuable number?
Keep the snow off my propane tank.
Actually, snow would help it. Well, no, that's probably for rust. They just don't want to paint your propane tank again. That's all that is. Yeah, no, because
I don't do it.
I was gonna say, yeah, wouldn't
tell me I don't fucking do it.
Heat would probably be worse for it, right?
Exactly. So freezing it, which is primarily what I'm operating in negative pressure most of the time. And if I'm seeing PSI, it's maybe 30, like maybe 30. And my systems are rated to operate anywhere from like 120 to 400 PSI, right? And so I'm not touching anywhere close to that. But that's part of how hydrocarbons work, is they chase the cold, because they go from a gaseous form into a liquid form when they find the cold. And so if you're finding the cold, it's becoming liquid, right? If you're going away from the cold, it's becoming gaseous and it's expanding. That right there will tell you the pressures, and if you got your temperatures, you don't even almost need a gauge, and it's just more about volume at that point. I lost my train of thought of where I was even going with that, but there's a lot of different factors, and a lot of them are really important. But again, it's like if you're operating within a certain kind of standard operating procedure, a lot of these things you don't have to worry about, because you just, it's not a factor. It's could be if, I don't know, the sun comes up and decides it's going to be 180 degrees today, like, sure, like now we're operating in a different environment, but it's not like a 50 versus 70 degree difference, because we've got dry ice and other things that kind of maintain that. So I don't know, man. I could probably talk about it for days and give you millions of different, tangents about it. But to me, it's like just one big process that I do over and over again. And it's just because I've done it over 800 times, and it's only the input that changes. Like, I'm not doing a whole lot over here.
We still got a number of questions here if we want to knock through a couple.
Yeah, let's do it. This is a good one. Ideal temp and humidity to freeze dry in, and also to press in. And we've talked about, having a cold room, cold bot, cool bot, all that stuff. We didn't talk so much about humidity, other than the fact that maybe the freeze dryer is trying to reduce that, right? But what about operating and pressing in those environments, temps and humidities?
I haven't found humidity to be an issue, although I haven't really tested it, but I haven't.
Cold enough.
Yeah, I haven't found it to be an issue. Now,
I run mine at 50%.
Oh, yeah, I would say middle of the road. You're going to be safe. Either of the extremes, I would say probably extreme on the less humid side. More humid is probably going to be more detrimental than less humid. Now temperature. As far as freeze drying in, not a huge deal. The only thing that I think of there is that when you're freeze drying in a cold room, most likely, unless it's like a commercial environment, most likely that cold room is also your pressing, and or processing room. So it's going to add heat to it, but it's also going to help your freeze dryer run, because your freeze dryer will run more efficiently if it's in a cooler environment. So I guess there's some variables to think
about that too. If you have the oil-based pump, they're actually meant to run at higher temperatures because it keeps the oil liquid. If you run it in a cold room, your oil will get thicker and you will have less lubrication on your pump, and you will prematurely wear your pump.
There you go. I always ran mine in just a room. I never ran mine in a chilled environment.
You can point a fan at the freeze dryer, but don't point a fan at your pump.
There you go.
So or just duct it out of the room. You know what I mean? Like that's what a lot of C1D1s do out of regulation or whatever and safety. But you can the vacuum pumps, the chillers, a lot of those things you can just duct outside of the room, and kind of like we would with a ballast, right? On a grow light, you can kind of put them outside of the room and then just cord them in. Just remove some of the heat out. I think it's kind of the same principle.
Yeah. And like Pedro was saying earlier too, just keep your walk from the freeze dryer to the cold room as short as possible. And then wherever you want to run the freeze dryer, as long as it's not 120 degrees, you'll get the room too warm message if your room gets too hot. It'll tell you.
And I know we're running out of time here, but washing, pretty much colder the better. Pressing and or handling the hash out of the freeze dryer is going to vary depending on the hash itself. But I would say anywhere from the 45 to 65 range, depending.
I like 60, so it doesn't get too shattery at 60 for me.
It depends if we're processing or if we're handling hash.
Oh, right. True.
So yeah, I wanted to try to keep it short because man, there's the variables. Again, we can walk on this fucking road and go down another half an hour. If Ferroli's on the wrong side of the road again.
Still,
I think he's talking to his imaginary
son of a bitch. I had such a good outro there. It
sounded like it. It sounded really good.
We should have just
so
filled
confident in that one.
It looked like you were getting somewhere for sure.
Fuck it. We'll see you guys next week.